It is now 2016 and the Cavs and Warriors are back on top of their conferences. Wait, What do you mean it's 2024? Wait, but that doesn't make sense. Because the Cavs and Warriors are still dominating? It turns out it is 2024 and after almost a decade, nothing has changed. The Warriors being 9-2, being tied for the second best record in the league, having beat teams like the Dallas Mavericks, Boston Celtics, and the Oklahoma City Thunder on the way to reclaim their spot at the top of the Western Conference. While on the Eastern side of things, Cavs seem to be steamrolling everyone in their path with a record of 12-0, blowing out teams like the Lakers, Raptors, and the Warriors. Speaking of the Warriors, in their last game being against the Dallas Mavericks, being Clay's return to Golden State, ultimately spoiled by Stephen Curry's masterclass to close out the fourth quarter to beat the Dallas Mavericks. And during that game, I got to thinking, watching the Warriors play throughout this year made me feel like the Warriors are back to their old ways. And no, I'm not talking about the KD Warriors. It's more like the 2015, 2016 Warriors. You can even throw in 2022. I say that because the Warriors were always known for their ability to push the ball in transition. They relied heavily on their pacing, a lot of getting 3-point shots up, and their off-ball movement. And this year, I have seen a lot of that, with a little cherry on top being their defense. The Warriors this year have held their own on defense, being one of the best defensive teams in the league, actually being 4th in defensive rating. The Warriors seem to be back to the old shenanigans. We thought we were done with them after 2022. After losing Klay Thompson, we thought the Warriors dynasty is finally over. Things seem to play a little differently as of now. Playing a lot of switch-heavy defense throughout the season, while Kuminga, Draymond, and Wiggins are on the court, they rely heavily with Looney and Trace Jackson-Davis being that backline help, and even Draymond being that 6'5", 6'6", 6'7". I don't know how tall Draymond is at this point. We just know that he is a below average center at best, height-wise, but he manages to keep up with guards and being a undersized rim protector, but being great as an undersized rim protector, being a 34-year-old, still impressing people with things he can do. Doing all that while still being their primary distributor and ball handler in the team on most occasions, while Curry's playing off the ball. Doesn't get talked about as enough as a 34-year-old. You guys can say whatever you want about Draymond. One thing this man has done is earn his stripes. Another key aspect to the Warriors' success so far this season being their ridiculous 3-point shooting. Starting off with Draymond Green shooting 46% from 3, being his so far his career high, with him being a respected 3-point shooter, which is surprising throughout this year. Andrew Wiggins being another one, shooting 38%, which is above league average. And then apparently the greatest shooter of all time being not Stephen Curry, it is being Buddy Hield. Buddy Hield so far this year has shot 47% from 3. And yes, Buddy Hield has always been a great shooter, but not at this rate or this clip. This isn't something that's going to be sustained throughout the year. The Warriors will eventually come down from that high pedestal. If they could keep up somewhat this pace, still fares relatively within the 4th to 6th seed. Like, let's be honest, is Draymond really going to shoot above 40% this year for the whole year? Highly unlikely. And Buddy Hield most likely is not shooting above 45% this year. That puts him all-time made shooting wise. And I see with the Warriors having Steph playing off the ball with either D'Anthony Melton, B-Pods, or Draymond bringing the ball up. Curry's always succeeded in the off-ball role, relying on him to be the primary ball handler and primary scorer every single night when end up getting tired because Curry is a 35-year-old. So what did they do this year? They went back to their routes, especially against the Mavs when they needed Curry down the stretch of the game. The game was close. You give Curry the ball, let him work. Especially last 2.5 minutes of that Mavs game, Curry then scored 12 straight points to ultimately seal the Mavs' fate and Clay's return to Golden State. And I know briefly I mentioned Buddy Hield and his ridiculous shooting, but I also didn't mention he was averaging 17 points per game, percent from the field, 47% from 3, and 86% from the free throw line, which is something we haven't seen from Klay Thompson relatively close since 2019. So Buddy Hield seamlessly fit into that Klay Thompson role better than we expected. All the Warriors really needed was an above average shooter, and they found that in Buddy Hield, slotted him into that role and not needing him to play as much defense as Klay did back in the day because of the likes of Andrew Wiggins, Jonathan Kuminga, and Draymond Green, and D'Anthony Melton stepping up, especially coming off the bench, and contending for that 6th Man of the Year award. Speaking of coming off the bench, Jonathan Kuminga has fit perfectly coming off the bench. So far to start the year, Jonathan Kuminga is averaging 17 points per game, 52% from the field, and 43% from 3, while also being a great defender on the other end, complimenting Andrew Wiggins and Draymond Green and stepping up when they need him to. But the downside that Jonathan Kuminga this year, what I have noticed, and a lot of people have also noticed, is that he does not play well alongside Stephen Curry. It seems like he deviates from the offense and tries to do his own thing, because when Curry's on the court, Jonathan Kuminga averages 6 points per game on 50% from the field and 25% from 3, compared to when he plays when Curry's off the court, he averages 11 points per game, 48% from the field, and 38% from 3. And I think it's due to when Curry's on the court, Kuminga doesn't know know what to do. He's either sitting in the corner being a catch and shoot player, or just playing off the ball and going backdoor cuts, not really creating his own shot. That's why I feel like Kuminga is at his best when Curry's off the court. Also, speaking of younger guys, B-Pods is having a terrible year to start, putting up 8 points per game, 39% from the field, and 19% from 3. Yes, you heard me right, 19%. B-Pods has taken a step down from last year and it's looking bad to start the year. He is making bad choices and the decisions on the court, especially with his turnovers, and his playmaking has really took a step down. More of a sophomore slump. I do think he will continue to get better throughout the year and surely prove his value to this team, especially when they need him the most. But as of right now, I don't see why didn't the Warriors trade for Larry Markkinen throughout the offseason. Now let's move on to the best team in the NBA current day, which is the Cleveland Cavaliers, who are currently 13-0. And yes, I know in the intro I did say 12-0. That was recorded prior to the 76ers game last night. And honestly, there really isn't that much to say. They have taken care of business on most nights, being in close games, and I mean like a lot of close games. And those close games included the New York Knicks, the Milwaukee Bucks, not once but twice, the New Orleans Pelicans, and a 76er team with no Embiid, Maxey, or Paul George. And the Cavs' main focal point this year has been their three-point shooting. Players like Isaac Okoro are shooting 57% of their shots from the three-point line this year, compared to last year being around the 40% range. Also having around 5 players this year shooting 40% or more from 3. Those 5 players include Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, Karis LeVert, Isaac Okoro, and Ty Jerome. Do I think players like LeVert and Okoro will shoot around 50% or more throughout the whole year? Not even close. If they can stay being above average shooters throughout the entire year and not get played off the court like previous years, the Cavs are going to be a tough team to beat, especially when Mobley finally woken up on the offensive end, and it was only a matter of time before he did, having the 3rd most touches on the team, obviously behind Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland throughout these first 13 games, and basically having the green light like he never did before in previous seasons behind JB Bickerstaff. He's now been given the ability to run fast breaks, push the ball in transition after grabbing the defensive rebound, and using his 6'11 frame and his ball handling abilities for someone his size to be that point forward and capitalize on mismatches. That also helps the Cleveland Cavaliers and their pacing. They've been one of the quicker teams this year overall. Pushing the pace has also been one of their focal points, from last year being one of their slowest teams to now this year being top 5 in seconds per possession. A lot of this goes back to their main offseason acquisition being Kenny Atkinson, with the Cavs basically being tied for first in offensive rating, making them one of the best offensive teams in the NBA. With this newfound shooting and pace, the Cavs have quickly become one of the best drive and kick teams in the NBA. Atkinson has also led to arguably one of the most underrated players in the league being utilized off the bench, being Ty Jerome. Ty Jerome this season has been that spark plug the Cavs have been missing, being able to do what the team needs coming off the bench, averaging 10 points, shooting 62% from the field and 58% from 3, essentially like the 7th to 8th man off their bench. And he really stood out to me against the Golden State Warriors, dropping 20 points on 21 minutes off the bench. Ultimately, how long will this Cavs win streak last? Will the next 3 games be against the Chicago Bulls, Charlotte Hornets, and Boston Celtics? I believe it will end at the Boston Celtics, ending their win streak at 15 games. But who knows? This Cavs team has had some close games against some bad teams. Like I said before, mentioning that 76er team with none of their stars led by Jared McCain. Speaking of the 76ers, my last video was talking about Joel Embiid and the whole 76er situation. If you're interested in that, the video will be on screen now. Remember, go hard on them dudes. Salute.